Now, when you're mentoring or coaching for emotional intelligence competencies improvement, you may be faced with a subject with multiple areas of deficiencies, like Dr. Jackson. So you have to look at this in an orderly fashion. First, assess the job. Focus on the areas that impact the job most directly and start with one, preferably, or at the most two areas to improve. In general, start at the upper left-hand corner of the emotional intelligence quadrant and work around it in the order that has been presented. Generally, self-awareness is required prior to all the others being worked on. Occasionally, you will find in another area, like for instance teamwork, is so essential to the success of the person's position that you will decide to focus on this first. Next, assess the individual. Try to be empathic with the person that you are coaching to understand their strengths and weaknesses, and work with their strengths as much as you can. Some people have a real block, either developmental or personality-wise in certain areas, and just cannot get past it. Move on to another area with more possibility of success, and then come back to the problem area. Deliver the assessments with care. Be careful how you deliver the feedback and how you approach this. Often you're working with a highly successful person, and they're not used to negative feedback. If you have a written 360-degree report, you may want to give them some time to review and digest this. Maybe even give it to them ahead of time, ahead of the meeting, and give them a day to read through it and think about it. Or this may take multiple meetings to get to this step. Be sensitive to how they incorporate the feedback. Gauge their readiness. Is the person ready to change? If not, if they are stuck in their ways, you may have to move on to other management techniques, even though they may not be as effective in the long run. Or you may move to another competency that they are ready to work on. Motivate. Understand what motivates the person. Intrinsic motivators, and they are achievement, affiliation, and social power, usually work better to change behavior than extrinsic motivators. Examples of extrinsic motivators are pay or bonuses or fear of losing their job. So an example of using an intrinsic motivator with a highly motivated person to achieve is you'll have a better chance of advancement to the director level if this behavior was improved. And remember, change should be self-directed. Again, self-directed change that is generated by effective coaching is more effective than you telling or teaching someone how to behave. But if they are not ready or not motivated, and the change is important, you may have to resort to other management methods. They are just not going to be as effective and long-lasting. Focus on clear, manageable goals. What is the behavior that you're trying to change, and how will this be accomplished? Avoid being vague in general in this area. Be specific. Manage relapses. People will fail and have relapses in their behavior changes. Do not be surprised or discouraged. It will happen. It is similar to learning to play a sport like golf or tennis. Just because you can do it perfectly, that does not mean that it will be perfect every time. Give performance feedback. Give regular feedback to the person that you are coaching, either in a regular meeting or update or in real time after an event. Also give positive feedback more often than negative feedback. Reinforce the behavior that you are seeking in a positive way. Encourage practice. Lasting change requires sustained practice both on and off the job, just like you're learning any new skill or athletic activity. Ask them to practice the behavior in a setting outside of the workplace, at home, or in a social setting. Reinforce and encourage. You should always be reinforcing and encouraging people. People need recognition. They need encouragement, especially in making a major change like this. Evaluate. Establish ways to evaluate the development effort to see if it has lasting effects. This may be repeating a 360 review in 6 months, or some other type of objective feedback at a periodic time. Now, so far, I've been focused on providing mentoring or coaching to another to help someone with their emotional intelligence competencies. The same principle applies to your own behavior and how you can learn to work on improving your own emotional intelligence competencies with or without a formal mentor or coach. The steps are the same. Identify the need or the behavior gap. So you may say, I need to stop responding in an angry fashion when questioned about my budget by the finance officer. Identify the ingrained behavior. Specifically, I feel challenged when the finance officer asks me a question and I respond in an angry and aggressive way. Set a goal. Build a model. My model behavior is I will feel relaxed and not feel that it is a challenge every time the finance officer asks the question. Then I will respond appropriately. Create a tactic to achieve the goal. Know what your trigger is. I will review my budget ahead of time with my staff and feel comfortable in answering questions. I will not see the questions as a challenge, but just as a question. I will also put a note on my agenda reminding me to stay calm and focus on my behavior. Practice the tactic using your prefrontal lobe. I may have to use this trick to fool myself for several months before I can attend a meeting and interact with a finance officer without it. Use mental rehearsal. I will practice this several times at other non-stressful meetings with other staff. I will go over this in my mind several times before the meeting. Ingrain the new behavior. Eventually, I will behave appropriately at staff meetings when I interact with the finance officer. Then I will move on to another behavior that I am trying to improve. Now, this is the conclusion of the segment on gaining improvements in emotional intelligence competencies. The exercise that you're going to do is this. You are Dr. Jackson's department chair, and you are planning his annual review. Describe your conversation with him, the review of his emotional intelligence competency profile, and how you will structure an improvement plan for or with him. Assume that he is open and willing to change his behavior. Use the mentoring style or the coaching style and the guidelines for emotional intelligence improvement. Answer this in paragraph form using bullets or the numbered steps if helpful. Keep the answer to under 300 words or approximately equivalent to 1 page. Thank you.